I've been in ministry for 44 years. But you don't need to worry, I've been warned. I'm not going to give an altar call. I'm not going to cast out any demons. I mean, not that there needs to be. And I was kind of humored when I thought about the fact that Krista's been hearing me for like 30 years and wanted to hear me one more time because I'm now retired. So I do thank you very much for the invitation. I honestly didn't realize that Toastmasters has over 290,000 members, over 14,000 chapters in 122 different countries, that it's been around since 1924. That was all rather amazing to me. So, again, I thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I'm sitting in my office, going through the mail a few years ago, and I encounter an invitation to a seminar to be held here in town. The subject announced in the invitation is that it's a symposium or a lecture or a seminar on death and dying. And I'm thinking that would be fun to go to, you know, to hear about death and dying. So I decide that I'm going to go to that. And as I go in, and they introduce, basically kind of categorize the people that are there, a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses, hospice workers, a lot of funeral directors. I think just about every funeral director in town and in the area. And I was the only minister. Then they introduced the speaker, a man from back east, a giant of a man, like 6'6", and just a huge mountain of a man. He was a big Dutchman. And he announced his topic that day for the seminar as EU, Eschatological Urgency. And I thought to myself, being a minister and somewhat of a theologian, well, I understand what eschatology is, but why would this man who is here as an expert on death and dying, why would he announce his topic as eschatological urgency? A few years before that, my wife and I and our then two quite young sons had gone back to Montana to visit my parents for Christmas. Now, I grew up in Montana, and one of our favorite things to do back in that area was to drive about 9 or 10 miles out of town to a frozen lake in the winter. Wide open, sagebrush, but really it was a little reservoir for the cattle that the man had on his property, and he didn't mind people coming out and using that lake during the winter as an ice skating rink. Well, what's kind of humorous is as a teenager I had many times driven a car out onto this lake. My Volkswagen Bug, my 54 Plymouth, I mean big cars, never had a problem. I'd go out there with my buddies and we'd bring a rope and hook it onto the back of a car and tow a sled around or ice skaters around, and never had a bit of problem. So this particular day, my father, my wife, my two sons, and I loaded in my dad's pickup and drove out there with a Honda 90 motorcycle in the bed and a sled and some rope. And we were going to pull the kids around on the lake on this little motorcycle, and they were going to be on the sled. So we unload the motorcycle and get our winter clothes on, and my dad's fooling around with some twisted up rope that we're going to use, and I decide to fire at the motorcycle and just make one loop around and kind of see how things were. And so I left, heading off to the left, and made a big circle around on this relatively small lake, but it was a lake. And I'm getting near the deepest end, because there is the earthen dam. It's a reservoir, and as I'm coming along about halfway back, I suddenly heard a sickening crack and realized that the ice was breaking under me, and the motorcycle and I fell through the ice. I hit the back of my head on the edge of the ice. With winter clothes on, I was completely submerged in the water. I really thought probably things were coming to an end. I was barely conscious from having hit my head. My winter clothes were just soaking up that icy water instantly. I tried to get out on the ice the first time and failed and sank back into the water. Somehow, I'm a good swimmer, and I, will give the glory to God. I did come back up and dug my fingernails into the ice and somehow slithered out onto the ice like a seal. The amazing thing was the motorcycle was caught on the edge of the ice by one of the handles and hadn't sunk to the bottom. I slithered out to the shore and looked over to see my family had realized what was going on. One of the ironies is my dad was still fooling with the rope, trying to get it untangled, and he threw it down and ran to save me. The very thing he would have needed is the rope, but he threw it down. Another ironical thing about it is our youngest son, David, about 8 or so, he started crying, realizing the gravity of the situation, and he said to my mom, his mom, to my wife, he said, "But what would we have done for a pastor?" Not what we would have done for a dad or what you, Mom, would have done for a husband, what we have done for a pastor. In that moment, I'm sure I didn't realize fully, as I should have, the real importance of EU, the real importance of eschatological urgency. So I'm coming back to the seminar, and eschatology is simply the study of that which is last. That's what it means in its most literal sense. What is last? Theologians use it a lot in terms of doctrine, believing that there are last days ahead of us, but that's not what we're here to talk about. There is a beginning, there's an ending. It's the study of what is last. It could be in any context of life that you make that application. So as this big Dutchman is talking, he's asking the funeral director specifically, he said, how many of you in conducting a funeral or getting ready to conduct a funeral have been handed a note by one of the family members and asked specifically to put it in the casket before the casket is dropped into the ground? Every single funeral director raised their hands. He said, and you know what is on that note, pretty much, don't you? And they all nodded and said, yes, we do. Mom, I'm sorry. Dad, I'm sorry. Brother, forgive me. I wish I'd been a better husband. I wish I'd been a better wife. I wish I had been a better brother or sister or whatever it happened to be. He said that's eschatological urgency. Because things do end. Our lives do end. He said, therefore, we need to be living our lives with eschatological urgency. The urgency that drives us to live our lives each day with the understanding that not everything, even us, lasts forever. Take advantage. Take advantage of every opportunity given to you to make sure you run on a clean slate. That's what he was saying. He was saying that to doctors. He was saying that to nurses. He was saying that to funeral directors, hospice workers. He was saying that to one lonely preacher. And that was me. And that was something that I needed to have reaffirmed in my life, and also something that would spur me to, given the bully pulpit that I have, or had at that time, to make sure that I conveyed that life's message to other people as well. EU, eschatological urgency. Are we harboring something that we need to deal with? Is there a broken relationship that we need to be the initiator of a resolution in? Someone said to me once, you have to be bigger than the people you lead. You have to be bigger than the people you lead. In other words, if anyone is going to have the magnanimous spirit, if anyone is going to have the forgiving spirit, if anyone is going to be the one that initiates the resolution to some conflict or stress or difficulty, it should be the bigger person. And I think that probably would say something about all of us. I don't think that you are here because you want to stay the same. Obviously, you're here today because you want to change, you want to improve. So I think that would even go along with the fact that we are people that want to be bigger in that sense, but not physically, of course. So here's what I've attempted to do this morning. I've attempted to connect with you sincerely by stating that I'm honored to be here, and I said that to you, and I am. So that's what I tried to do. I tried to connect with you in stating to you that I'm honored to be here. I also tried to connect with you in demonstrating that I had done some research, things that I just wouldn't know inherently or off the top of my head. I attempted to connect with you by showing you that I valued this time together by doing a little research and understanding a little bit more about your organization and about Toastmasters. I attempted to share something that I hoped would hold your interest, that would be interesting. And in so doing, and I think this is important for public speaking, I actually went from the lesser to the greater. The lesser story being the ice and the motorcycle, the greater story being the seminar I attended regarding eschatological urgency. And then I attempted to make an application of that and to cause all of us to think about whether or not we are living our lives with eschatological urgency. And maybe I don't give myself any credit or try to be self-aggrandizing in any way, but maybe, just maybe, out of this there will be something that triggers in someone's mind that's here and says, you know, yeah, I should make contact with him, or I should talk to her, or maybe there is something. Maybe I should give another attempt at resolving that issue. So, thank you again for the opportunity to share. I haven't even had a flag yet. So you owe me 16 minutes. Thank you very much.